A special budget meeting of the Westfield agenda for the Westfield budget, both City Council for Wednesday, October 19th, 8 o'clock a.m. Cindy, would you call the roll, please?
Here.
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 Troy Patton.
Here.
We do have a quorum.
You might stop.
Oh, who's here? Who is it?
Scott Willis, maybe?
Scott Willis? No?
Cindy.
Cindy Spaljeric?
Negative. Nope.
I was gonna say, because we
And
don't
Jake's
have
not
a
here.
quorum. Okay,
Willis is on.
This is Scott.
okay. Now we have a quorum.
Okay, so we have a quorum, and Jake Gilbert is unable to make it today. Previous commitments with respect to his job, and Cindy Spaljeric is out of town without access to the computer. So we have a quorum of 5 today. During today's budget meeting, we're going to adhere to the following agenda. We'll have opening remarks from all the councilors. Then we'll move right into the budget. We're going to discuss the wage increase first, followed by health insurance increase. Third thing will be our legal expenses. After those are discussed, I'll lead a line-by-line budget review, during which time all councilors can also address specific concerns in addition to those that I point out. We'll also then discuss infrastructure concerns that are in the budget, anything that's not in the budget, and we'll have our final remarks. I expect that the administration, the clerk, will take any notes or any changes made to the budget, and that the revised budget will be up for council approval next Monday, October 24th, 2022. That said, I'd open the floor to opening remarks from councilors, starting with Mr. Willis. Scott, you're out there. Do you have any opening remarks?
Can you hear me, Mike?
We can, Scott, yes.
Yeah, I have no opening comments.
Okay. Joe, opening comments?
Yes, I do. It is important that for us to always have a balanced budget. That being said, how much surplus should there be? A prudent business goes for 7 to 10% surplus. We have to have a surplus here to pay off our debts. So that was kind of my target in this thing. And part of it is salaries, part of it is additional staff, and part of it is a few things that have been added since we met on the 10th. So I think we have to look at those things. We have to be prudent and govern for that 7 to 10%, I believe. And so surplus, and so that's kind of my opening comment. How we get there, we may have different paths, but we're going to get there, I think. That's it.
Thank you, Councilor Edwards. Councilor Fry, opening remarks?
Sure, I would just like to quickly acknowledge that it's clear and evident that there's a lot of hard work that's gone into this and presenting the proposed budget. Pardon me. I want to make sure that, as we navigate these waters, we understand that this is not a this side versus that side type of conversation. This is a conversation that's focused on what's best for Westfield in general. So I think that's the only comment that I would make.
Right. Councilor Patton?
I was just going to thank everybody for putting together the budget and working on it. Misha, I know you've done a heck of a job, as well as even all the department heads and everyone putting the budget together. There is a fine line between putting together a budget, understanding the budget, and recognizing, kind of what Joe was saying, that we have to have money to pay off the debts. Probably the one thing I will say is that, there are a lot of people watching, employees, taxpayers, everyone else. And, you know, I would say that the budgets are not easy. You're talking about in the open public. I would say the one thing that, you know, probably is a bit of a sour patch is that, you know, when you have false rhetoric, you know, going around, whether it be by people in the administration, people that work for the city, saying that no raises are going to be given. And when you have city employees liking those things on Facebook, saying no raises are even going to be given at all, commenting, making fake profiles, I just think it's too bad because the city employees are watching. I appreciate that. The taxpayers are watching also. And pitting everyone against one another serves no purpose than to undermine the very concept that we're trying to do, and that's create a budget. It is a discussion. It's a back and forth. And I think making false promises to people should be left for another day. So that's it.
Thank you, Councilor Patton. I guess my comments would be that I have heard several people say that we've got plenty of money in our budget this year. And for the first time ever, we can spend on things that we haven't spent before. I would just like to remind everybody that the reason we have plenty of money in our budget is because our residents are being taxed higher than ever before. And it is, in fact, our residents' money that is in the budget. So it is incumbent upon this council to be prudent in our use of those funds. If there was a way that I could introduce an ordinance to reduce our taxes, I would do so. All right. I think we've got a lot of people in our community that live on fixed income. Their taxes have gone up anywhere from 10 to 20% over the last year. It's a lot of money when you're living on fixed income. But unfortunately, the way our state is arranged and the state laws say, we can't do that. If we were to reduce our taxes here for Westfield, tax monies would just flow to other communities and not back to our citizens. So unfortunately, that's not doable. The other thing that we need, but we do need to keep in mind, is we're also the fastest growing community in the state of Indiana. And that brings good and bad. Obviously, we've got the growth, we've got all the vibrancy associated with growth. We also have great infrastructure needs. So while we're looking into our budget this year in particular, I'm going to ask that we be as frugal as we can with the spending for items that maybe are not of that much importance, if you will, in a priority standpoint, but that we try to focus those additional revenues that we're fortunate to have this year to building the infrastructure, to providing the safety needs that are so needed and by our growing community. So that said, I would also add to that, because I've heard some people's rumors out there that we've got a turnover in personnel. And I would just like to note that our average length of our city personnel is 8 years tenure, and that's pretty good. Our biggest turnover is in Grant Park, which I think is normal, at 1.4 years in Grant Park. We have a lot of seasonal type employees type there. Communications is the second lowest as far as seniority, with only 2 years there, and Westfield Welcome there with 2.9 years. But on the whole, our employees have been here for an average of 8 years. That said, I'd like to move into our first item of today, which is a discussion of the wage increase. Councilors, start with Mr. Councilor Edwards.
I need one question answered for me. Part of the firefighters are in a union. Is that a negotiated contract? If so, that's what it is. I mean, whatever the negotiations have come to, that's what they're gonna be paid. We don't have a choice in that. But I think that what we kind of came out with is Counselor Patton asked the fire chief to, when do these additional employees have to be hired? And it was, I think it was agreed on April or late March or something like that. So there would be quite a savings there if we could delay the hiring of those new people in the fire department to that period of time. Am I correct on that, Counselor?
That was my sorry. That was my understanding when we met. We talked about April 1st as the hire date.
Okay.
Is that correct?
We haven't officially made that change, but yes, that was the conversation that Chief Gaylor was willing to do. All of that said, it does impact when those folks come in to service, so it is a delay either way. So
That would save us in the fire budget $327,152 by my math.
yeah, the chief did the math on that. Some of those costs in that personnel are fixed, so it's the number that I was provided was actually it's $288,000.
Okay.
288?
Yeah.
But am I correct that those under the union contract, whatever's negotiated, that's what we have to pay?
The contract is currently under negotiation, and yes, there's some truth to that.
Okay.
I met with the union yesterday. They are certainly interested in how the fire department is treated, but they're also concerned about how everyone in the city, employee-wise, is being treated.
What percent of the fire department is union, are union members?
You know exactly how many union members in the fire department? We're at 100% membership of our firefighters. So, all of them.
Okay. That includes the chief and everybody, huh?
Who does the hiring there?
The hiring?
Yeah, where does the hiring go through?
It is through the merit board, correct? Right, so the administration, the chiefs, and the other administrative folks make recommendations to the merit board that does the actual
Yeah,
hiring.
I mean, like, who posts, I mean, who searches for the firefighters? I mean, is it through,
Chief Roberts will come and explain that it's an entire process, so I'll let
Yeah.
him.
I'm just curious.
Sure. Our process starts with advertising for the position, of course, first. After which, and that's done by the administration, puts that together. A
The
timeline.
fire administration?
Yes, in
Okay.
conjunction with the union, we work together
Yep,
and put that together as far as the timeline goes. We do the interviews, written testing, and so on and so forth. We have two different types of hiring processes, one of which is the recruit hiring process, which is new, fresh hires that we go through the training with. Then we also have a lateral hiring process, which is laterals from their career department where we may hire to replace experienced firefighters. So that allows us to replace experience with experience. So we have two different types of hiring processes that we go through.
okay. Yeah, no, that's good information. And then, like, when they typically have questions, I mean, I assume you guys have folks that work with them on their employment and stuff like that?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
And through that process, there are a number of emails or phone calls go back and forth between recruits, laterals, whoever that case might be, to
Perfect.
where we want to be.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chief Roberts. Okay, counselors, again, the first thing we want to address is the salary issue.
Right.
So let's hold off on the addition of new employees and let's just focus on salary right now.
Yep.
So,
Yeah,
No,
no, I
Councilor
wasn't,
Patton?
I wasn't talking about new employees.
No, I
was just
understand,
Trying to
I
find out how they hire.
Councilor Fry, do you have salary comments? As far as increases?
I do. I think I shared all of my thoughts on the increases as far as a cost of living increase, as far as things of that nature. I think I shared that at the last council meeting, and I understand and I recognize that times are tough, and I also recognize that, you know, I want to acknowledge that I'm for increases where they're earned. But to say a 5% cost of living increase across the board is something that I think we really need to study. And again, in light of the fact that, as mentioned up here earlier, we're looking at taxpayer dollars, and we've got a lot of big projects on the horizon. We need to be very prudent with that. I understand that, you know, the state that we're in, it seems like we need to find a happy medium or some sort of middle ground. Again, in general, I'm against the concept, but I recognize that's not appropriate to say, you know what, we're not going to do this. So we need to find out what that middle ground is. We need to figure that out.
Yeah. I was just going to say, you know, I've shared this thought before, even though I think it gets lost in the translation quite often, is that, and I've told you this, I'm not against a 5% increase in wages. Is what I am against is we give everyone, or we give someone maybe a 18% merit pay increase, and then we give them a 5% pay increase, and we cover their 9% health insurance increase. When the average citizen is not seeing those things. Just because, and I've heard Jeremy say this, and I'll repeat this. He said, when he says, well, we have it in our budget, we have the money to spend. Well, first of all, we is the taxpayer. And not that I'm not against that. We have to, just as you, in your opening remarks, we have to save for infrastructure. We have to pay down debt. And if we're, let's just say for argument's sake, we're at a $5 million surplus, right? And we borrow $5 million on a GO bond. That doesn't mean that we have a surplus. That actually means that we're borrowing $5 million to pay for additional items that we need to grow the city. Now, in fairness, even talking to Greg, you know, we get those monies back over the next 2 years, but those next 2 years, we will have additional expenditures, very similar to the next year as assets depreciate, et cetera. So running everything at a $0 amount is not a good idea. We have over $150 million in infrastructure projects that we've been given. I think it was $180 million actually, that need to happen over the next so many years. The only way you pay for those is to have additional dollars. I mean, we're not like the federal government. We don't print currency. So, anyways, from the employment standpoint, again, I'm not opposed to, you know, even a 5% wage increase. I don't like across the board increases. If one person gets 7%, then somebody else maybe gets 3%. I mean, maybe one person isn't as deserving as this person. I mean, this is not a socialist society. It's true that one person may outperform another. One person may bust his rear end, you know, on a come along, and the other person may sit on the side of the road smoking a cigarette. I'd give the better raise to the person that's working his tail off, you know, right? I mean, I think that's the way it should work. But I also don't think if I'm an employee and whether I was put in a new position or not, and I received a 20% pay increase, why in the world would I get a 5% COLA increase also? I mean, that just doesn't make sense. I mean, so.
So with that comment, I appreciate that, Mr. Patton. With that, I would propose that you all approve the 5% and then give the directors the authority or privilege to distribute that 5% how they see fit.
Okay, Jeremy, we appreciate that comment. Could you please hold your comments until we hear from the rest of the counselors? Counselor Willis, can you like to weigh in on this issue?
Yeah, I've said a lot last meeting. I won't go back over some of that. I will just say that I'm open to compromise. I think we should all be open to that. But I will say, when you look at the 9% increase in healthcare costs, generally speaking, a company will pass some of that off in the form of a premium increase to the employee, but the company also absorbs some of that cost as well. So again, I think there's a balance here, both in the cost of living and the adjustments to insurance. If we're going to, plant our flag on corporate America, then we have to look at how they do that as well. That's all I have to say.
I would agree with that.
Thank you.
That's a good comment.
I think one of the things we need to take a look at is perhaps not a 5% across the board, but a lower figure across the board, maybe 4%, and the remainder put in a kitty for the department managers to do, to pay some of their employees that think they are doing a good job. I think we have to reward effort.
Well, that's the balance we have, we have to have. So
I don't know that 4% is the right number.
Well, if it's 4,
Let's,
that's what I'm saying.
okay, let me weigh in if I can on this one too, okay? All right, so first of all, just to clear the air historically, okay? Because I received an email yesterday that said that in 2021, we had a zero increase, or in 2021, a zero increase in salaries. In 2022, we had a 4% increase, and in 2023, we're looking for a 5% increase. Well, I would like to just go back and revisit 2021 because that is an issue that still really, really peeves me, to say the least. In 2021, we were going through a COVID year. And Jeremy, this is not your issue. You were not responsible then. You weren't in charge at that point in time. There was another deputy mayor reporting to our same mayor. But in 2021, this council asked that we hold our salaries for the year. In return, we would make sure that during the COVID year, everybody got paid on time, whether they were in the office or not, working from home. We didn't put that in ordinance, we just asked it. And the previous deputy mayor agreed to that. Well, let me tell you what really happened in 2021. In 2021, we had 96 civilian employees. That's other than the fire department and the police department. Of those 96 employees, 26 of them got raises during 2021. Of those 26 that got raises, 3 of them got 1 raise during the year. 16 of them got 2 raises during 2021, and 6 of them got 3 raises during 2021. When you add those up, I don't know if that's 51, 52 total raises that were distributed to the 96 total employees at a period during the year when it was agreed that there would be no increases. So thanks for letting me get that off my chest. Okay, moving into our suggested increase of 5%. Yeah, I came from corporate America, as most of us up here did. In corporate America, your wage increases are basically based upon merit. They're not typically cost of living increases as we see here across the board. In the future, moving on, I would like to see our city and our administration introduce merit-based increases. This is something that was done. I've got a great sample of one from the way we used to do it back in 2010, 2011. I'd be happy to share that with the administration if you don't have copies of the way it used to be done. But it was pretty in-depth merit review that it was like, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 pages that the employee would fill out, supervisors would fill out. Merits increases were based upon merit. I think that's the way businesses and cities should be run. Cases, that's not the way we are now. We're faced with the budget today. So as I went through the budget, trying to reach a compromise, which I think is worthwhile, I kind of, in my own mind, I came to a compromise of a 4% increase, basically across the board, with the addition, also the observation that as I went through the budget, for our civilian employees, 95, 96, as many as there are, there is another 158,000, or basically 1% built into the budget, for discretionary raises based upon the discretionary input of the supervisor or discretionary stipends. So that's 158 additional $1,000 that is in the budget that we're looking at right now. So if we were to give everybody a 4% across the board raise, cost of living, there's also 158,000 in the budget, so that some people, some people are gonna get, if we give that by merit, your good employees could get another 1, 2, or everyone's gonna average 1% more if you just did it across the board. So that would be 5% if the administration just decided to do it that way. But if they decided to actually use this as merit increases, people that are really doing a good job, they're gonna get 8% this year. People that aren't doing a good job, they're gonna just get the basic 4%. So as I look at it, I would keep these discretionary bonuses, if you will, discretionary stipends within the budget as presented. So apparently these have been discretionary pieces that have been in all of our previous budgets. But I would limit my opinion, limit the cost of living to 4% with the full knowledge that the employees that are doing a good job are actually going to get 6, 7, 8%.
Yeah, because there's 5% anyways, is what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly. That's
If
what
we
I'm
make
saying.
it 4%, there's 5%
Yeah.
anyways.
So counselors, your thoughts?
If you read the newspapers, people who are on Social Security, like me, it's rumored that they're going to increase that benefit 9%. Now, I'm not the smartest person in the world, but I wonder, where are they going to get that money? They're going to print it, that's where they're going to get it, which means that your money buys less and less and less. So this percentage game is kind of a false front when you think about it. Everybody says, hooray, we got 9%. Well, but if you're buying, whatever you're buying, costs a heck of a lot more. That's always out ahead of you.
It's actually your own money.
Yeah, it's actually your own money.
You're paying yourself back, actually.
Yeah, but it's not a curative panacea. It's just not. And so I think you have to proceed with caution when you throw percentages out that that may not be exactly what you want in the end. So that's just my 2 cents worth on that.
I don't know that we need to do this by motion.
I don't think we should today.
No, but I just think that we need to agree to what percentage are we recommending?
I think if that's fine, but if we're gonna say that, we need to address the health insurance also.
Well, let's do
And
that.
I would agree with Scott Willis that, the people should pick up part of it. And I've actually relayed that to Jeremy as well. So I think it all needs to be kind of taken into account together, Mike.
Okay.
But what I would do is I would just say, I would have Misha make those adjustments and say, put in a 4% increase and then leave in the discretionary 1%. And then that way, and truthfully, they can, if they want to dole it out however they want, if they want to give one person 8 and another person 3 or 2, that's up to them. I think that's the best way, but the health insurance needs addressed also.
It would be helpful for me if you all did take an action on each individual item, so that way we can bring back that adjusted budget. So it would be helpful if you would vote on each individual thing so that we can clearly
I don't
break
think we
them
need
out.
to do that.
I
I don't think we need to do that with the budget process.
I don't know that we need to vote, but we need to give guidance, so.
That's what I'm saying. We give the guidance, and we say, hey, let's create this budget. There's only so many things that are gonna possibly change anyways. We have Misha make the adjustment. We're not gonna vote on each individual item in the budget. That makes no sense. We'll just,
I was
Well, let's-
specifically just talking about the 2 or 3 topics
I
that we
would
were.
say the guidance would be 4% for the cost of living raise across the board.
So, all right, and just a comment to Joe's point, And I agree that it's your money, you're paying you back when it's specific to Social Security. But the reason for the 9% is because the cost of things that you are buying on your fixed income is increasing by that 9%. So that's why they're leveling it. It's the same concept as a cost of living increase.
That's just the world we live in.
It's apples and oranges.
It's, yeah, let's not get into
Completely.
Social Security. There've been, if we go years after years
I
after
wasn't
years,
worried about the
people live
Social
on fixed
Security.
income.
What I was referring to was the intention of a cost of living increase.
Yeah.
Okay. So basically, do we have a general agreement among the counselors of 4% increase?
And leave the one additional. the
And leave the
stipend.
additional stipends money
Yeah,
in there
yeah,
to be.
Sure.
Aye,
Aye. Guys, voice vote, aye?
Yeah, aye.
aye.
Okay, all right. Next item on the agenda then would be the health insurance, the 9% ask
Hey.
on that.
I'm sorry, I gotta go back to this real quick. When we're talking about the 4% increase, I think we need to clarify. So for instance, if in the last, 4 or 5 months, or 6 months, or 7 months, somebody has already received an 18% increase, to give them additional 4%, I mean, I think that should be reduced by those situations. I mean, that's just,
So I completely agree with that, because you're getting a raise, you're getting a promotion, whatever it might be, you're getting an increase in income based upon job performance.
yeah.
Some of those are rather significant, and congratulations to those individuals. This is not meant to be taking anything away from them. But maybe that's where the department heads look at that and say, make that decision on their own and say, okay, instead of 4, we're gonna give this person 5% because we're not giving it here.
Well,
I think that's a decision that they,
it could be as simple as saying, asking, what have the raises been so far, right, this year? I mean, and whatever, let's say that number's $100,000, and we're talking about $900,000, then the pool is $800,000. And that person that received a 20% pay increase already probably wouldn't receive that additional 4%.
I understand that. What concerns me is that in my research through the wage increase for the budget this time, I've discovered that in the past, what has happened in many years, again, Jeremy, you weren't here, not your problem, but it is our problem, but over many years, what has happened is we've gone and we've approved a budget with an increase effective January 1st, and then during that last quarter, everybody gets a raise before January 1st, and then they get a raise on top of it January 1st.
It happened the first year we
So,
were here.
yeah, so that certainly was not playing nice in the sandbox, not being fair, not being honest with our residents. So I guess I'd make a recommendation that there shouldn't be any wage increases from October 1st through December 31st, because we know that there is a wage increase coming on January 1st. And that if there are any wage increases during the last quarter of the year, that any merit, positional, promotional, positional type increases, that those would then be deducted from the 4% that everyone's entitled to at the beginning of the year.
Look,
That makes sense.
Counselor Johns, I understand completely, based on the history, I understand completely the intent there. Before we make a statement like that, I would like to ask Jeremy what the percentage is, or what the number of folks who happen to fall in that time frame where you anticipate pay raises between now and the end of the year.
Or the fourth quarter.
We would need to parade everybody up here. The department heads work within their own budget to give
that's-
merit increases or promotions when they're appropriate. Sometimes that does fall in the fourth quarter.
And I guess that's what I'm trying to say is, I think some of those, in some scenarios, are legitimate.
Yeah.
I know that's probably not a great way to say that, because that makes an implication there, but that's been our experience. So I don't want to complicate things for those who are on the verge of that next step and that promotion that are rightfully earned and rightfully due. I don't want to make those situations more complex than they need to be. That said, I don't want to put ourselves in a position where, frankly, I feel like we were taken advantage of the way that it was done in years past. So I guess what I'm trying to say is we need to have a conversation perhaps and walk that fine line so that we're not making things more complex than they need to be, but at the same time not exposing the taxpayer dollar to say, hey, here's a bucket of gold, reach in and grab what you can.
I think what I'm hearing is the implication that we are giving raises in the third quarter in advance of a cost of living increase intentionally to spend budget. Is that what we're saying has been done?
It's just an observation that on many, many occasions in the past, that once the budget has been approved for the next year, that in November and December, there have been wage increases that have gone in that could have gone in on January 1st. Could have gone in 5, 4, 3 weeks later. I mean,
what they do is
we
they-
see wage increases in the middle of December and then another increase 2 weeks later.
Makes us kind of feel like there was double dipping in the past to kind of take advantage of the
And for
circumstances.
instance, like in 2020, or let's just say, for argument's sake, we say, hey, everybody's gonna get 4%, right? And then what happens is everybody says, oh, well, we have room in our budget, we can move things around. We're gonna give everybody 4% anyways, and then we're gonna give them 4% and 4%. And that's what happened in the past. Or if, as soon as someone agrees to it, that, or let me just say it this way. So if I'm an employee at the city and I say, hey, we're gonna give you this level increase, and you're gonna get an 18% pay increase, do you think that person should have 18% plus 5% or 4%?
What I think doesn't necessarily matter. The intention, so I've never seen anyone get a promotion in this organization, and I've given a lot of them and received a lot of them that wasn't earned. I don't want to confuse that with what a cost of living adjustment is.
Well, yeah,
If I might add too, I really think, we're trying to solve a human resources problem. We got Brady on the line. Brady's our director of HR. Do we have a policy around when merit increases or promotions or whatever we're talking about here? There should be a process for that. And rather than us trying to solve that today in a budget meeting, maybe we need to bring Brady back in a future meeting to talk about policy and procedure around promotions and when that happens. And maybe we can dive in and make some changes there. But I think we're muddying up the water here with what is supposed to be a cost of living adjustment. I understand everybody's concerns. I agree 100%. Given a promotion December 31st and getting a merit increase on top of that doesn't feel right to me either. But I think this is probably an HR program that we need to dive into, not the budget.
both.
Thank you, Scott, for that comment. This is Brady Laux, Director of HR. I do not disagree, Counselor Patton and whoever else was stating that. I do know that in the past what has happened is that there have been many employees that had been awarded that were lower level positions, and there were certain particular people that were pointed out that were higher level. I can say and speak for myself, I was one of those people in November of 21. I have been upfront and honest about that. That was not intentional. That was not intended at all. That was how the direction of the department went. And that is an operational thing. So due to the operation, it was needed. And I will say as well, the former chief of staff had asked me specifically, I can only speak for myself, if I had expected a cost of living. And I said, absolutely not. I do not. Matter of fact, I didn't even get anything until March, because what we had figured out is that people were awarded on the entire organization from different levels that they had got cost of living. And then there were 2 of us in the director positions that did not get it. So we had been targeted. And so we had to have those monies paid back. Do I agree that we should have had the cost of living? No, but that was not my position to take. And unfortunately, you can't discriminate against every individual that got one and you point out certain people. So if we're speaking to that situation alone, that's what had happened. But as far as moving forward, I do not disagree. I do think that there needs to be a structure, of some sort. So whatever that looks like, we can talk about. I'm more than happy to do so.
Appreciate that feedback. Again, unfortunately, we're having this conversation because of past history, and I understand that's not Jeremy's fault. That's not. I guess what I'm trying to say is we got to again find that fine line where we can move on from that and trust that we're not going to have the same circumstances again.
I think Jeremy deserves some credit for being open with us about the budget. It never happened that way before. It just says, here it is, take it or leave it. Leaves a sour taste in your mouth, but Jeremy didn't do that. He's been pretty open with us.
Well, I appreciate that.
So Jeremy?
I'm
what-
not the only person that did this budget. There's a whole lot of time and energy and work that went into this.
For sure.
So your suggestions to make sure that doesn't happen this year? You think you can?
My suggestion that somebody shouldn't get a promotion that they have earned because of a time of year, I don't know that I can suggest that. If we want to talk about.
Nobody's saying that,
No one's
Jeremy.
saying that.
Nobody's saying that. Let's make sure we're clear. If somebody deserves a promotion, they should get a promotion.
Agreed.
Because otherwise, I'm gonna see it on Facebook tonight. Oh, you don't want to give anybody promotions. Yeah.
By limiting what happens between October 31st and December 1st, it limits the ability for people who have earned promotions to get them in that period of time. If you all want to implement a rule or some sort of policy that says you can get the promotion, you don't get paid for it until January, I suppose you have that authority.
That's not what we're saying.
so-
We're not saying that
so-
either.
Again, that's
Yeah.
kind of the point that I was trying to jump in and clarify.
I agree. I
If
appreciate
someone is due a promotion, whether it's October, whether it's November, whether it's December, if they're due a promotion, man, congratulations to them.
Give it to them.
Absolutely, give them that promotion. We don't want to complicate that in any way, shape, or form. I'm speaking for me, and I think everybody here agrees. What I guess I'm trying to say that I didn't say earlier is the trust factor that this is not going to be exploited and manipulated. That's a hard one for us because I personally feel that took place in the past. So again, those who have earned a pay increase, whether it's a promotion, pay increase, what have you, I do not want to complicate that. Hear me clearly. I don't care if it's December 10th. I don't care if it's December 25th, 26th. Give them that promotion, okay? And a pat on the back from us. What I'm following that with is, based on past experience, I want you to understand we don't want to see that just across the board. Just, hey, this is pay increase season because we've got another pay increase that starts January 1st. And again, my terminology, the thing I can come up with is, let's double dip this. That's the way I feel that it was done a lot in the past, and I don't want to see that again.
So this is what I'll say. I don't know, but I don't believe that was ever intentional. What I would like to do, it sounds like Councilor Johns has a list of these folks and these raises that we're all, you mentioned them earlier. Why don't we sit down and talk about those? And if there's something there that I need to regulate on my end, then I'm happy to do that.
I appreciate that.
I don't have
Jeremy.
enough information to know what it is.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Fair enough. I think what we need is we need to sit down with Human Resources. And now that they obviously, it sounds like they're aware that there's an
Yeah.
issue. And I think that it should be a human resource policy that should be developed. And it's not the time or place to develop a policy up here during
No,
the budget meeting.
I agree. It is policy
So,
manual
but-
season, so now's the time to
So
talk about
that would be wonderful. So then at this point then, I think,
Yes.
this council has basically agreed to a 4% increase, which would be, if I'm right, $182,712 reduction to the ask at this point in time. Moving on, then the next issue is the health insurance increase.
If I
at the
could, before we
9%
dive into
ask.
health insurance, I have an update on that number. So we met again late last week to further refine really the next level. So this goes up until the final numbers that we received last week. So the 9%, courtesy of Brady, and thank you to her, we were able to negotiate the total down to 6.57 and lock in all the ancillary benefits at the same rate as they were before. So the $422,000 increase that we were counting for is $225,000 now. So that's a reduction of 197 that we can put in based on the latest information.
What was that number, Jeremy? 255?
225 of an increase, so that 422 that you see there is replaced with 225, which is a $197,000 reduction.
Let me be the first to say thank you. Thank you for the efforts to make that happen.
That sounds good to me. That's great.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Absolutely. Okay, let's make that the change to the budget then. Sounds like Jeremy's already made that. Okay.
Wait, to be clear, has that,
It has not been updated on any of the forms, it just happened.
you don't need anything from us, though, to make that adjustment? I mean, that's
No.
that's going to
You'll
take place.
communicate that and
Yes, we'll make the adjustment, it'll be on your budget that you'll approve next week.
let me ask you something. Obviously, I mean, you know, I've been trying to get you to look at the health insurance, obviously, for a month or a couple months. And I know you're, maybe this group with this AIM pool or whatever, is gonna come back supposedly next week, you know, maybe Monday, and have some information for you. Are you locked in on the other one, so you have no chance to, if they come in with a lower price and frankly, better health insurance coverage, will you have that opportunity to move?
So I'll kick that over to Brady. We have not locked anything in yet, but I don't understand the logistics fully of what it takes to switch insurance providers. But ultimately, yes, we are always going to do what's best for the employee and for the taxpayer.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, so once again, Brady Laux, Director of HR, just for the record. We definitely are gonna take that into consideration once we get those numbers. There are a few things that, the plans were a little richer, but not by much, so it would have to come down to the rates and making sure that we really would get a good rate. And here's what I don't want to happen either is, you know, some companies will say, we can get you this rate. You have that for the first year, and then the next year they come back with, you know, some astronomical rate. So I made that very clear in those conversations with that group, and they have assured that that would not be the case. So we are waiting on the numbers, and we'll pinpoint that. It would be a little more difficult to move forward with that for next year, just due to the time constraint, but it's honestly going to come down to when they can get that to us, what those rates look like, and if it makes sense at this time or possibly for the future.
Okay, and thank you for meeting with them. You know, just from clarification, the way that that pool works with, the insurance is pooled with 44 other municipalities, or I believe, in the state of Indiana and around. So actually, they can't necessarily give you a teaser rate because it's actually the rate of the actual pool. If they gave you a teaser rate, they have to give the same rate to other people. So that actually doesn't work that way. And from my understanding, there might be some savings in the coverage stop loss and different things like that for the employees.
Yeah, and I will, thank you for bringing up stop loss. That is one of the changes that we made for this, or are proposing to make. So it does adjust our stop loss. So currently our stop loss is 85K with a company. We got a new, we were already, based on our size of our benefit staff or our employees, looking at $100,000 stop loss, which means we pay, we're self-funded, so we pay everything up to that stop loss coverage. We did a bunch of analytics on that. At the 100K, it would have exposed us to $43,000 in extra spending. So we did decide to bump that up to 100K. It lowered our rate, like a reduction from existing to future, and also our exposure was better than with 85.
Yeah, with the AIM pool, you may be surprised that stop loss might be $50,000.
Sure.
And actually have the same coverage and cost, which would actually save us additional dollars and actually give better coverage to the employees of the city.
And if that's the way it proves out to be, we'll certainly.
I have
go
no
that
skin
way.
in the game. I'm just
Yeah,
trying
no, I
to
understand.
save
And thank
money
you
and
for
get
bringing
better
that
coverage for
forward.
everybody.
That's not something we'd ever considered before. Quite honestly, I didn't know it existed, but it could be a really good opportunity for us.
Thank you, Jeremy, for all your efforts there. Moving along then, our next topic is the addition of new employees to the city budget.
So before we go off from that, if I understood you correctly, you're okay with not passing along any percentage to the employee based on this the new rate for insurance.
I think if you've reduced that number from 422,000 to 225,000, that I personally would be definitely okay with that. I know that if the council had paid 5%, okay, there would have been a reduction of 187,000, and your reduction is 197,000. So that would be like the council had agreed to pay roughly 4.5% of that 9. And I think that was kind of a middle ground we were kind of thinking about anyway.
We're trying to get to a certain amount, obviously, to save the money for the infrastructure projects that we have coming up.
So I think
So we don't have
we're
to-
pleased with that. Are we
So-
in agreement?
Yeah, I think so.
I think so, Jeremy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Next item, then the new employees ask. Counselor Fry, can you want to address that one first?
I've got no comments on that
Okay.
at this time.
Counselor Edwards.
I do have some comments. In my opinion, and this is an opinion, we need to support public safety. That would mean the police department, the fire department hires, and the one hire in the road business, Public Works, John Nail's area. The other hires, I would say, we need to set aside. That's my opinion. That would save us $561,933 by my Butler math.
Actually, Counselor Edwards, if the fire department agrees and follows through with their intent of not hiring any of their 12 new firemen until April 1st, there's a 25% savings there too.
Right.
So the
I didn't-
savings then, if we did just allow for those 16 positions, would be $889,065, approximately $900,000 reduction from the ask.
Just a point of clarity, per Jeremy's comment, with the delayed hiring, with postponing the hiring from January 1st to April 1st with the fire department, he said on the actual expenses, he gave us this number just a little bit ago, he said the actual savings there is $288,000 for the fire.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was a little under that. But, I just took personnel costs.
That is correct, right?
That's the number that fire provided, correct. I do want to mention though, so fire has currently 5 openings and they're in a lateral process. So you will see 5 new fire folks come on before these people do,
Yeah.
But they're lateral.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to see any new hires at the end of the year, or you to see any new hires at the end of the year or in that first quarter and be confused with the intention of the 12.
Yeah, fair enough.
Perfectly on board with that, and I appreciate the
Yeah.
clarification as well.
We're also aware that within the budget with respect to the civilian employees, that there are 4 open positions currently within the current budget. So those could be filled at any time and do not apply to these additional
Right.
new requests.
But the ones we were speaking about were the new hires.
Yes, just new hires.
I don't know that, I've got a sheet here that describes them. Community Development, 1. Westfield Welcome, 1. And there's been some thought that perhaps DWA might take over some of that function. I don't know, but I'm not going to get into that right now. Informatics, 1. Fire and police, as they have asked. Public Works, 1. Human Resources, none, or one hiring that wouldn't be allowed. And Grand Park, 2. And Communications, 1, actually. Communications and Administration. Half is split between that and Communications and Administration, so.
Yeah, I would say on Westfield Welcome that, that they need their part-time people obviously for the summer stuff, I don't think that's a problem. I mean, I think that's.
No, they have, that's within the budget. This would just be the
Yeah.
one additional
Okay, you're
new
just talking
person.
about full-time
We're just
people.
talking about the new full-time
Okay.
positions.
Okay,
I think the one, the half and half, I think that was an intern, but.
Yeah, the two at the bottom there, the communications and administration are interns.
But I don't think we need that.
I don't think so.
That's my opinion.
yeah. It's nice to have, but at the same time, I mean,
Again, my opinion, having gone through this list pretty carefully with the rest of the budget, I would also recommend that we add the safety personnel, we add the 3 brand-new police positions, we add the 12 brand-new fire positions that have been requested, and we add the 1 public works position that has been requested. So of the 23 requests, I would agree with those 16.
yeah.
So not shown on this list is a full-time addition to the clerk treasurer's office. Is that being eliminated as well?
That we're agreed to that one-time addition to the clerk treasurer's office also, not shown on this list.
So you're approving the clerk treasurer's position as well?
Yes, yeah,
17 of the 24, 23 or whatever.
yeah,
is
17 of
being
the
approved.
24, if you add that.
Well, I would hope that you would allow these other departments to at least talk to you about why they need this extra person before you guys make your decision. I'd certainly like to start with Brady, that's on the phone for Human Resources. She sent out some good information. Based on the national average, we're clearly not up to standard for the number of human resources folks to take care of the city. And then we're adding also, if we're saying 17 people, then that's additional demand on HR. So I would like to offer them the opportunity to speak. Kayla, unfortunately for Westfield Welcome, has lost her mother over the weekend, so she's out contending with that. I do have some information. I don't know if there's anyone for her team on or here that can speak to that, but I'll speak to that real quick and then turn it over to.
Jeremy, I would say, though, that we're pretty limited in our time this morning. We've really only got another hour and a half here, a lot to cover. I think all of us have already looked pretty carefully at the request for additional people. When needed, we've talked to people, we've read what the various people, like Brady, have submitted to us. And I don't know that there's any value to them doing another presentation at this point in time. Counselors, do you see any value to that?
Counselor
I would
Johns,
agree.
I would like to speak. It's not a presentation. What I would like to say is it's extremely upsetting that I've sent out an email that I was hoping that you would have reviewed. It is based off of data and statistics. And to Counselor Fry's point, I know he mentioned a few council meetings back, which I greatly appreciate that comment, was the Baker-Tilly report. And whether you agree with that or disagree with that, there are, as far as from an HR standpoint, there are stats and facts that would support having a third person, not to mention Society of Human Resources Management. The reason why I present these facts is not to say, oh, just because we have this set of numbers with population or this set of number with employees, we should have, although that supports that alone. But the functions internally that we are filling from the HR department, we cannot sustain this anymore. The demand that we have added different functions to our department that is needed and expected. So it is beyond just benefits. And I say, if you're adding somebody for the clerk's office, we work hand in hand with the clerk's office. Why would there not be another HR person as well? So honestly, I think that you not doing that, it's very upsetting, very, very upsetting, because we could prove time and time again, and that was based off of 2020 numbers. Adding another 16 people, we've had 197 people a decade ago with 2 HR folks. Fast forward to now, we have 250 with no vacancies. That's not mentioning the vacancies, seasonal and interns. Every single person that is hired in, we have to do an orientation with. It doesn't matter if it's fire, police, whatever. We now help with recruitment on the civilian side that we never did before. We are in charge of training and development and trying to build those processes. Now you would like for us to look at compensation. Where is the time going to come with 2 people? So I'm sorry that I'm getting passionate about this, but I feel like our voice is not heard, and it is extremely frustrating. When you look at the Baker-Tilly report, the 3 main lean departments were administration, clerk, and HR. So let's not add any to that, and let's add more to public safety. Do I agree that public safety is a priority? Absolutely. But at the same time, we have to understand from an operations standpoint, who is supporting those people. So I would really appreciate your consideration. And once again, Councilman Fry, I appreciate that comment that you had made a few council meetings back, and I would hope that you would reread that email and reconsider.
Brady, we thank you for your opinion. I would respectfully say that, and disagree with you from my past experience. You mentioned the Society for Human Resource Management. I am well aware of that society. I've participated in that society. I've been to their conventions. I've exhibited at their conventions over a 15, 20-year period. So I've attended many of the meetings at those conventions. In my opinion, with 96 or 95 or 96 full-time people, civilian staff, you have more than enough and adequate representation with 2 full-time employees.
So,
Yeah, so I appreciate that. I've read what you submitted yesterday. I've shared your submission and talked to some other human resource people, professionals, with what you submitted. And they would humbly disagree. I'm willing to meet with you on a one-on-one basis and discuss that further. But at this point in time, I personally cannot support the addition of another person in our human
I
resource.
appreciate what you said about the 96 folks, but this HR department services the entire population of the employees. So
I understand, but
it's not 96, it's 250 plus the additional that are coming on.
I understand the limited amount of service they do for the other fire department, police department.
Did you say the limited amount?
Yes.
Yeah, they don't do the full thing, that's all he's saying.
I think the fire chief, Chief Robert, just explained that to us a little while ago.
Specific to the hiring portion of what
right.
they do.
Right.
Exactly.
They do the
We do set in
termination.
those interviews as well. So we do set in those interviews. We are the ones that reach out to them about their benefits. I have an HR manager that is setting and doing orientations every
Okay,
single 2 weeks,
Brady,
and is the
thank
one
you
that
for your
reaches
comments,
out.
but we're going to cut you off at this point. Again, we need to move forward on this in a timely fashion.
Matt Trinian would like to say a couple words as well.
I just need to make one point of clarity, really quick. I totally respect your guys' decision as far as what you guys want to do with this budget. I want to make sure that it's noted that the Grand Park line is not city tax dollars associated. So if you're looking at it from a removal standpoint, I just want to make sure that it's noted that those dollars come out of operations for Grand Park and does not hit the city tax base from a revenue or expenditure standpoint. I just wanted to make that point of clarity.
Yeah.
Thank you. Counselors, can I have a vote then on this? Do we?
I agree,
I agree.
yeah.
Counselor Willis?
I have concerns, to be honest with you. I'm okay with us coming back and saying we're gonna cut a few positions, but I can tell you, I get complaints all the time about certain functions that happen within the city. And I think bandwidth is an issue. For example, in communications, I hear all the time from people, they don't feel like they're getting information flowing to the community, that there's not enough communication coming on roadblocks and things happening in the city and all the different things that happen. I believe there are certain departments that need headcount additions to keep up with the growth of our city. I think for us to just do hey, if you're public safety and public works, we'll support it. If you're not, we won't. I personally don't see why the clerk treasurer gets a headcount addition when our budget hasn't really changed a whole lot. We're giving them a headcount addition, but we're not giving other departments. I fail to see where that makes sense. So I don't support this action of cutting across the board all headcounts. I am open to some, but a little bit more of a surgical approach than what we're doing right now.
Okay, thank you. Counselors, as far as the headcount cut, it's,
Good.
can I hear 4 yeas and 1 nay, is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay,
So-
Jeremy, we're going to go with that count as we.
So just to make sure that I'm on the same page, you're approving the 3 police, the 12 fire, 1 public works, and one clerk treasurer's position?
That's
So
correct.
Total of 17?
Yep.
Yep. Thank you. Okay, the next thing in the budget, I'm going to try to go through line by line here and make some recommendations as we go through. If any other counselors have comments, please add. Don't let me miss anything if something pops out on you.
Which form are you working off of from a
I am
line-by-line
working off
perspective?
of the budget, the current proposed budget here.
The budget
And
packet?
this is probably the budget package as of 4 days ago, so that's what I worked off of. So if there's been any changes yesterday, I don't have those on my copy here.
There have not been any changes in OpenGov. I
Okay,
don't think I have your copy
okay.
to pull up so that we can work through this. I have the Form 3, which is what you're actually,
no,
will
I've
actually
got-
be approving.
Well, let's go through the detailed budget here. That's what we're here to do.
I can maybe work through OpenGov to make sure that we're capturing all your requests.
So my first concern was under administration, account code 330, legal accounting. There is a $2,200 amount in here for Westlaw. And it's my understanding that the contract with Westlaw was terminated in 2021, and they no longer do any business with us. So if you could, I recommend we remove that from the budget, that $2,200. Do you know who they are, Jeremy?
I don't.
Okay,
Westlaw's is just it's a publication, is what it
Okay.
is.
all right, okay.
I mean,
Let's remove that then from the budget. The next item, 331, admin consulting. We've got $140,000 budgeted. Out of that, there's Barnes and Thornburg is budgeted at $50,000, that 140, but we've only used $25,000 year-to-date. Do you believe that we're going to need, last year we budgeted 50, we used 25, this year 50, we're at 25. Do you think we need to budget an additional 25 for any reason?
Mr. President, I think we may need to budget some. I don't know how much, because Barnes and Thornburg kind of gives the legal opinion about how we spend that COVID money, that $4 million that comes in. And Cindy
I thought
kind
that was a
of,
PR.
I don't know how much that is, but it's,
So,
We can
It'd be
answer that
something.
Question.
so this specific expense is associated with our work at the State House, specifically lobbying for our growth quotient efforts, as well as other legislative things that we work on. It's outside of what they're doing for the ARPA committee. I do think it's necessary, yes. We've only spent that, they're on a monthly invoice, so they may be a little bit behind on invoicing, but yes, we want to have money there to continue that service.
Yeah. So all right, so you feel that 50,000 is the appropriate number to keep in there?
I do.
Misha, do you agree with that then? I mean, or,
I mean, I'm looking at the appropriation through September, and they've only spent 25.
okay,
Yeah,
I gotcha.
it's separate
Okay.
from.
thank you.
thanks.
Counselors, any thoughts?
In administration, there was an additional amount put in by Jeremy for legal. One thing that kind of opened my eyes at the last meeting, that part of the legal efforts for us pertain, and I don't know what percentage this is, to the redevelopment commission, developer agreements. I think the redevelopment commission should pay that. Why
They-
should we
they
pay
are.
that out of the general fund?
I couldn't agree more, and that's the way this budget is proposed.
Yeah,
And the RDC budget
I
as
think
well.
they separated it.
We already made that.
Did they separate that out?
Yeah,
We did, and that was the conversation about the additional appropriation, and
Well, one other thing I'd like to point out, anytime I ever got a legal bill, which haven't been too many, but the hours that were spent and the project that was worked on and the hourly rate were stipulated on the bill. We don't get that kind of information. And I wonder if the clerk treasurer gets the information to separate these things. She's gonna have to, or he, whoever it is, and,
So that is.
I just think that a lot of, I can't fathom the amount of money we've spent in the past out of the general fund budget for the RDC. And now we're kind of at a crossroads on that. We need to correct that quickly.
I'm working to correct it for the 22 budget as well as the correction in the 23 budget. The reason you don't have those specific details in our legal invoices is because our legal invoices are public record. Some of these things are confidential. All that information is available to us. We can get you specifics anytime you want. We just got to sit down with Manny and I, and we'll go through it.
Well, it's got to be done.
It's done every month. So I look at them before invoices. I say every month, what will be every month, before invoices get processed and approved.
The RDC as well, I mean, they, sit on some money, and they're well able to pay these legal fees. Now, it might make them consider, shall we engage this attorney to do this? They might be more cautious in their thought.
Counselor Edwards, I would like to thank you for coming back and circling back to legal. I skipped that. We addressed the wage increase, the health insurance, and I moved on to looking at the general budget. We had actually decided that we were going to look at legal expenses first. So let's have our conversation on them first before we get more into the detailed general budget.
I would say when we, if we do come to the end of the road, that the people know where the stop sign is and they quit incurring legal fees. I mean, that's what a budget means.
So legal expenses in the budget. And Jeremy, I appreciate the effort that you put forward and the thought that we should divide our legal expenses between the different departments. I think there's a lot of value to that. I just, at this point in time, I don't have any way, any framework to even conceptually look at that because we, the council, have no idea what our legal expenses are. It is unfortunate, but we have been dealing with a legal entity, an attorney group that has failed to invoice the city on a timely basis. We're sitting here in middle of October. We've only received invoices through the end of April. That's embarrassing. The end of April, and we found out that we were $3,000 over our legal budget for the year. Now, the way that the government's supposed to work is that if you know you're over budget, you're supposed to come and ask for an appropriation. But when you know you're over budget in April, and number one, you don't invoice the government, we have not received a bill from Taft, all right? We have no way of knowing where they're spending money, what they've done. I mean, I have no way of knowing if they spent money in economic development, if they spent money in administration. I don't know I don't know what services they've done because they haven't invoices for those services. And I understand that the invoices are detailed and have a private nature and you have to be careful of what we share with that. But the bottom line is we haven't gotten any invoices. So that legal, and that's a whole different issue for another day. We can't, we're not going to talk about that appropriation here and now. Okay, but all suffice to say that the budget for this year for legal was, what was it, $352,000 or something?
It's 600,000 spread over the different departments.
Okay, that's the proposed budget, 600,000.
Proposed budget, yeah.
Okay.
And just to give you an update, we do have the invoices through September. I'm working through them right now, so you'll have an update. That same spreadsheet that I provided the last time with the breakdown of the different cause numbers, all color-coded and where they should go, I'll get that to you as soon as.
I mean,
as soon
that's
as I
all
can.
well and good, Jeremy, but it's five and a half, 6 months later. I really don't care about that now, nor do I care about TAF now at this point in time. What we're looking at is the budget for next year. So I would recommend that we approve $600,000 in the budget for a legal item, but I would suggest that we keep that $600,000 just in the one line administration right now, because we don't have any idea as to how it should be distributed at this point. And move on from there. So can I get a general approval from the council of $600,000 legal fees for next year?
Sure. If there's
I've got a
separation.
question. I've got a question, Counselor Johns. So if we do that, how do we track? So if the council, for example, wants to go off on a tangent and gets us in some legal costs, or the clerk treasurer or some other organization, and it drains funds that are needed for mandatory things the city has to deal with, how do we manage that? I mean, I kind of like the system that they had created that gave us accountability to the individual departments. Are you saying we're going to go away from that, or did I misunderstand that?
I'm saying that we would like to do that in the future and work that into next year, but that at this point in time, since we have not done that in the past, that we probably need to have a little bit more research and a little bit more knowledge of what the costs in the past have been, so we can appropriately allocate those costs among the departments moving forward. And at this point in time, nobody on this council has any idea of where those monies have been spent in the past, because that information has not been provided to us by our current attorneys.
So here's a question that I have. Go ahead, Scott.
I'm sorry, Scott. So what you're saying then is that we'll revisit that before the end of the year and eventually make an appropriation in the budget to reflect that. Is that correct?
I'd say we would make a transfer in the budget. We would appropriate the $600,000 under the one line item now, and then at a future date, we can always break that $600,000 up and transfer it to the appropriate departments.
Okay, great. Thanks. Appreciate it.
One of the things that's important is that the redevelopment commission, both present and future, need to look at these invoices and say, did they do this work? Was it productive work? And that puts the onus on them. They are the representatives of the people, not of the administration, in my opinion. And they need to think about that. That's where we've kind of got ourselves in this fix, and we need to extricate ourselves from it. I commend Jeremy for offering to do it.
Jeremy, if I may, I just want to make sure, there's a lot of stuff that's been said here, and I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page. So, first of all, again, breaking it down by department, a lot of work went into that. I appreciate that. A lot of work went into that, and I don't want to waste that, because again, I think it's the right thing to do. I just want to be clear, and I think this is where Councilor Willis was going. Is there a reason, is there a problem where if we allocate these monies for, legal expenses, is there a reason, or does it complicate things unnecessarily to then, once we're able to get our arms around what is appropriate by department, make those adjustments? Because again, I think moving forward, that's the way it should be done. But to Councilor John's point, excuse me, we have nothing that we can gauge that from. I mean, we have no information to look at something there and say, yes, this is appropriate, or no, this is not appropriate. So, again, just as you recognize the work that you put in, the effort you put into that, the similar effort's going to be required by us, but we have to have the information to do that.
Yeah. So functionally, I don't think it's an issue. As we discussed at the last meeting, the clerk will have a few appropriation numbers that she needs to create that are proposed in the current budget. We've just got to go and extract those legal expenses from the different budgets and plug them into admin, so you'll see a reduction in some and an addition in the admin line. I will continue to track things the way I have been, which is the supporting information of how I created, or we created, the budget. The numbers that I projected from the end of May are very much in line with the latest projection on on the recent invoices based on the departments. So the different cause numbers in the departments, it extrapolated really accurately, a few $1,000s off of less than what I projected back in May. So if that's the way council wants to see it, and we'll have basically 2 years worth of invoice and tracking data for the next budget, or for if you want to do transfers later. I don't see a logistical problem with that, so long as the clerk creates the appropriation numbers. That way it can truly be an interfund transfer and we don't have a process later. So in police and fire and the other ones that we talked about.
Basically, the RDC and the redevelopment commission is gonna take over the payment of their own legal bills.
They're gonna get invoiced directly under a separate contract from us. So they will go and approve in their claims their legal expenses.
That comes out of their money.
Comes out of their money,
Okay.
correct.
So will this give the council and the clerk a budget for legal fees, or is that going away? Because we still have Ann on staff, and I know they still have their attorney on staff, the clerk treasurer's office. How is that being dealt with?
I was going to wait and address the legal for the clerk's office and for the council when we got there, but we can certainly discuss it right now, Councilor Willis. The clerk's office, currently, their ask was for $48,000 within their budget for legal. And that was based upon basically a $4,000 per month retainer for their department. When we get to them today, I'm going to ask that they reduce that number to $24,000 for this budget, with the caveat that, let me make you perfectly aware, and all the councilors aware, that state statute says that the clerk is entitled to legal counsel, her own legal counsel, and if at some point in time she chooses to spend more money, that is approved under state statute, and we, the council, do not have anything to say about that. Now, I would also say that my thought that she should retain her counsel for at least the next 6 months at a cost of $4,000 per month is based on the fact that there is a continuing criminal investigation going on, which deals with the clerk and the administration. She may need that counsel. At this point, I think it's prudent that we allow that to happen. With respect to the council's legal fees, our attorney's fees, we budgeted last year $75,000. We had initially reduced that number to $37,000 per next year, and I'm going to ask that we actually take and reduce that further to $25,000. Again, with the caveat that obviously, if we need further representation based upon any lawsuits that are coming out from the administration, that we may have to increase that number later in the year. So that, as far as I know, is a full legal item. Again, with respect to the budget, there's $600,000 in the budget for the DLGF, for the basic city items, but I've also noted that there's $250,000, is that correct, Jeremy, in the budget for RDC legal?
Correct. So before we jump to that, so that I can make sure that OpenGov is correct, you were reducing from 37, for council legal, 37 to 25?
25, that's correct.
Okay.
And we're reducing the clerks from 48 to 24.
What were those budgets last year, Mike? You remember?
The council's budget last year, this year was 75.
75.
But again, we're tracking at 18,000 through August, through September. So I think that 25 in next year's budget is a reasonable amount, again, if we don't have anything.
I appreciate the clerk treasurer and the city council reducing those amounts. I mean, obviously, we hope they stay low.
And to put, and to say, to go further than that, I would hope that as we move forward to next year's budget, and we're looking at possibly a new administration coming in, whatever happens with our legal counsel, I would hope that in moving forward next year, we'll be able to eliminate any budgetary items for legal in both the council and the clerk's office.
That'd be great.
So that's the goal we're working toward. And it's getting back to really defining what it is that the legal counsel for the city does and how they can best support all city functions.
Could I make just a quick point clarification?
Yes.
On when you had talked about the criminal still ongoing, it's against the administration, not the clerk treasurer. I just wanted to clarify that.
We understand that. We understand that. Okay. All right then. If we're putting legal behind us for this point, and let's continue to move through the budget. We were on let me go back to make sure I understand the item 331 administration consulting budget for Barnes and Thornburg. The budget amount of $50,000, only using $25,000 year to date. Is it, Jeremy, do you still want the 50 in for this coming year?
Yes, that would be preferred.
Okay, very good. Moving on then to item 347, administrative promotions. Can you tell me why, and maybe it's just where it is, can you tell me why there's $15,000 for the Colts training camp under this category here, and why it's not somewhere else?
As I understand it, the administration pays for the suite, the city suite, and the refreshments and things associated with that.
Okay, and in addition, there's another $15,000 for general promotions in this budget?
Yeah, that's things like holiday parties and awards and things like that. So they all
Okay,
say for it.
so my concern is we've got a $32,000 budget, and yet we've only, at this point through September, we've only spent $7,500 this year.
Okay.
So is it?
Yeah, the big expense comes at the end of the year for the end of year party, where we invite the city employees and their families and celebrate a year worth of service and success.
Do you know where we finished up last year?
Not off the
At the
top
end
of
of the
my head,
year?
no. No, I can.
And does the clerk's office know where we finished last year at the end of the year?
Hold on, 121. Which one are you on? I'm sorry.
I'm on 347, administrative promotions.
Well, we don't have it on here. I can get you that number.
Okay, if we can, maybe Jeremy, look at that and let us know sometime in the next couple of days, if you feel that that's still.
12,564.
What is it?
12,564 at the end of 21 in administration promotion.
Okay, 12,564, budget 32. I'd suggest that 32 be reduced based upon past experience. Reduced to, I don't know, reduced to 15. Saving 17,000.
If we're not spending it.
Yeah, we're not, we haven't spent it in the past.
We don't willy-nilly spend it. If it doesn't get expensed, it stays in the
Right.
general
Yeah,
cash fund.
yeah, so let's reduce it by $15,000 and down, or by 17,000, down to 15. And if you need it, we can always appropriate it. Take it out of the budget. That saves us 17,000. Okay, moving on then to item 349, admin services. We've got budgeted $565,062, which was the same amount that was budgeted for the 2022 budget, okay? Of this, we've used $245,000 year to date, so $320,000, 56% still remains. I've got a couple items in here that I'm curious about. There is a $50,000 in here for the mayor and $150,000 in for admin, miscellaneous admin. And it looks to me like that's like $200,000 of just placeholder money that we haven't used in the past. I'm going to suggest that we cut that 50,000 and we cut that 150,000 for miscellaneous admin. 50 for the mayor, 150 for miscellaneous admin.
Without the mayor here and without the historical knowledge, I don't know what those funds are used for. It's specific things that arise. It looked like
How much did we spend last year?
700. But
$702,000.
I think that was a lot of the reports and the
Yes, I agree with that.
the examination.
Before it, the year before it was 444.
Yeah, which I think, yeah.
Yeah. Year before was 444. So,
So if you reduce it to like 400,000 or something, that's probably appropriate. I would, because we shouldn't have, so of that 702, I mean, and Jeremy can correct me if I'm wrong, or Greg can, but I'm pretty sure about 500 of that was actually the examination.
Yeah, I think the examination cost fell over a couple of years.
Yeah, yeah.
You made it up, so it might have it in total and then kind of impacted both years.
Yeah, because I think we spent over $1 million total on all that stuff.
I think we did too.
I think we ended up paying for some of that this year.
Correct. I agree.
We did
yeah.
83,000 of it.
So,
So the current budget is 565.
so I'm going to request that we delete the 50,000 for the mayor and we delete the 150,000 for miscellaneous administration. And you can always come back to us and explain why later, but I think that'll save us $200,000.
So I'm talking to Rogers, who has the best historical knowledge. It's projects and things that arise throughout the year that those dollars are allocated for. I suppose if you're cutting those, we'll bring those projects to you all. So you're saying you're cutting the, I apologize, I turned around. They're cutting the 200,000 out of that, 150 and 50?
Yes.
Who's doing those projects? The RDC?
No, these are city projects. The RDC is paying for their own things.
Okay.
All right. Well, let's cut it 200 from that budget, reduce the 565, 62 by 200,000.
Mr. Chairman, I've got another two hanging chads here. One of them, there was an addition to police services after our October 10th meeting of $631,500. Is this for the new police building? Is this what that is?
Yes, that 631 is for the next phase of design. So a design process of a project like this goes through schematic design, flows into design development, construction documentation, and then construction administration. So the 631 will pay for design development and potentially a portion of construction documentation. Each piece gets more technical
So
detail.
that will be, the design will be done next year then on that.
I don't think it'll be complete next year, so with the additional appropriation that I'm bringing back per your requests, that'll start the actual design, determine the schematic layout of the building. Then we'll work through most of design development and the beginning of construction documentation in '23. And then, yes, so
So
and
you
then
think we're gonna-
'24, we would finish design and bid and hopefully
So,
start
but
building.
we're gonna be paying this much next year, 631.
Yes, that's in addition to the 420 that I'm proposing right now, or
Okay.
on Monday.
There's one other item that was brought in to the budget, it's a big item, $1,934,952,000. the Grand Park Event Center, well, it just says Grand Park lease rental bond. So that's principal and interest on that bond, I presume. Is that right?
That's correct. And that's not new. It's been there since the beginning.
Okay, who owns that building?
The city owns the
city.
building. You own it.
The city general fund, the city general
The
owns.
city of Westfield owns the property in the building.
It's not the RDA,
It is not the RDA.
okay.
Returning
That's all
to,
the questions I have.
thank you, Counselor Edwards. Returning to expense item 349, administration. There is a budget amount in here for the Downtown Westfield Association of $30,000. Counselors, I have to ask you, do you want to continue that $30,000?
So that is the
That's a-
annual contribution that we've all been talking about that goes to DWA to support downtown activities like the farmer's market and other things.
I believe that's part of a much larger conversation, honestly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Agreed.
So do you feel like we should leave that in the budget at this point in time?
You know, there's, you know, I would, just to be civil here, I would say yes and no. I mean, right?
I think we ought to do it until we come to some real agreement about what's what there.
I think to remove it without direction or without a roadmap forward at this point in time would
Yeah,
probably
okay.
be,
So, something's got to give there, though.
Yeah.
I mean, at some point. Either we're pushing more things towards them from one side, or it's gonna be the other. It's gotta be the other. I mean,
I agree with that statement, but I just don't know that
I agree.
we're not there yet.
I agree.
So I think removing it at this point in time probably creates more hassle than good.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I concur.
Okay, we all agree then. Perfect. All right, next question then would be under item 350, admin, which is subscriptions and dues. We've got a budgeted amount here of $65,000. I will note that year-to-date, we've only spent $23,000, and all of 2021, we spent $15,000. So given that $15,000 was spent in 2021, it's only $23,000 year-to-date in 2022. It would seem to me that $65,000 seems to be a higher number than necessary. Is there a way that we could reduce that to $30,000? Jeremy?
It is under your authority to do so.
I'd like to recommend then to the council that we reduce that budgeted item from 65 to 30,000.
Yep.
So one thing I don't know yet is if we've paid this Indy Chamber bill, which a part of that chamber, they market our city, they try to create economic development for us, amongst other things. That alone is $39,493, which seems like a very specific number to me. So if we cut to 30, we wouldn't even be able to cover that cost.
Would that be something that varies from year to year?
It seems.
I think it's
Again,
based on
because-
population.
I mean, if we spent 15,000 last year, and this year to date, through 9 months, we're just spent 23,000.
Is this
Where
something
did
that's
that
new?
39,000 come in any of the last 2 years then?
I don't believe it was allocated from here. This looks to be a new, well, maybe not. I don't know. Quite honestly, I don't know the answer.
Well, let's go ahead and reduce it then, and then see what happens, because it just seems to me that's weird. Okay.
Reducing $350 to $30,000, is that
So
what we decided?
let's make it 30,000 instead of 65. Okay. Moving on, then, the next item under economic and community development, Item 310, we've got a planning and consulting budget of $30,000. And year-to-date, we've only used $12,000.
Are you working off of the end of September expenses, just for my?
Yes, I
understanding?
am. It's September, the appropriation, end of September.
I'll
That would
invite
be
Kevin
my-
up. He can further explain what those expenses and services are. Keeping in mind that we do budget for things that are unknown, right? We can't predict everything. So we do add dollars for some things that we don't plan. I'm sorry, you're in 349?
Yes, item 310,
310.
planning and consulting.
And so you reduced it by 30, right?
It's been reduced by 30.
What? And I see you've reduced it from 60,000 to 30,000, which we appreciate, but we also noticed that you've only spent 12,000.
Yeah, 10,000 of that 12,000 was for the part of the downtown study. That,
Okay. So then that reduces to 2,000, right? Then you, with the exception of that unusual downtown study.
Yeah, yes,
You
for-
would have spent 2,000 this year, and you're asking for 30.
for our on-call consulting that we utilize from time to time when needed. Yeah, that's what the $2,000 this year has been used for.
Could we,
So the ongoing expenses are probably like 5,000 maybe.
yeah.
It depends on the year, it depends on the volume, frankly.
Comp plan
Yeah.
come from?
Some of the, any comp plan amendment, any UDO work that we,
Fiscal plans for annexation?
fiscal plans for annexation come out of that, I believe. So,
Next.
yes, if there's gonna be any ongoing planning discussions or UDO amendments that we'll have to get some additional help, that's where that money would come from.
So what do you, so it just seems like 30,000 could be reduced slightly. What number?
Yeah, down to what, like 10 or something?
Yeah, like
Am I
10,
right,
15,
Kevin?
like 15,000?
Sure, I suppose. I mean, if that's where we're going and we need to come back to ask for more, I suppose we can do that.
Yeah,
I mean, you can always come back. I mean, if that's good. I mean, that's good news
Yeah.
So we're good with that. But from a budgetary standpoint, I mean, if other than the one special project you had this year, you only spent 2,000 this year. Well,
right.
12,000, it seems to me that 15,000 would be a better number.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. While you're up there, I got a couple more, Kevin. Todd, under 334, training, travel and training. So budget of 25,000, and we've spent $2,600 year to date.
Yeah,
And that seems to be a little
that's for
excessive.
17 people or something like that in our department, right? So we're still kind of figuring out this post-COVID world, where during the kind of the COVID years, a lot of trainings were offered virtually at either a free or reduced price for a lot of the stuff that we're doing training for. We're seeing that that's starting to not be the case anymore, so I think we will see an increase in expense for just normal training activities for our full
Like
department.
conferences and stuff.
Conferences and seminars, certifications, those kinds of things come out of that budget.
All right. So,
We're not doing a lot of traveling, but we're attending conferences and seminars and educational items for our people.
all right. So you feel like the number should still be 25,000?
I do, not knowing what the future costs of those are gonna be. I think that's a safe, fair number. Pre-pandemic, we were getting pretty close to that, just in our normal activity. And I think we're starting to see some of those numbers kind of climb back up in the stuff that we're attending.
Probably fair.
Okay, that's fair. Thank you. I think that's okay. The next item is 347, promotion and there you've got a $10,000 budget for promotion. You've used $4,555 year-to-date. What's this budget for?
Yeah, again, promotions probably isn't a fair title for it. It's things like clothing and equipment for our inspectors and our people, just, some logo wear goes into that too, but yeah, any employee appreciation, that kind of thing comes out of that budget. We're not purchasing trinkets to give away at.
Yeah, it
I mean,
just seemed like.
at one point, our department did do that many years ago. We don't anymore.
All right, seems like that's just a little high, but,
Yeah.
okay.
So as it pertains to promotions, you'll see a promotions line in essentially every budget. There's only two that are purchasing promotional type items. That's Communications Department and the Economic Development Department, so Kai's department. The rest is for business lunches, employee, just like we've said two times already, so employee appreciation, so engagement, employee engagement type activities, if you're taking for a team building type activity, all of those things come out of promotions. And that's actually, I think, legally the only place we can apply them to. Certainly food can only go there.
Okay, are we good? Counselors, good with that? Yes. Okay, thank you, Kevin Todd, appreciate it. Moving on. Okay, the next item would be under the parks, Westfield Welcome, and that is item 334, travel and training. Again, we've got a budget here of $10,100. We've only used $4,700 year-to-date. Is there any reason why we can't lower that 10,100 to 6,000?
Unfortunately, Kayla's not here to speak. I know that every number that we put in here was considered as a need. So I would assume that reducing it is not favorable. And I'm also assuming that there may still be some travel and training things that need to be done, but I can't seem to find it for some reason.
All right. If you feel that's important, Jeremy, counselors, your thoughts? Sounds like we're okay. Okay. Westfield Welcome. Promotions, item 347. Budget was for $299,500, essentially $300,000 this year. Year-to-date, they've spent $205,000 of that budget. Next year, they're looking for an increase of $62,000 in the budget. Can you elaborate on why we're looking for that type of an increase?
So I do know that many of the event type activities are paid for out of the promotions line in that department. If you look over here on these comments on the sides, that's where the dollars are going for. Looks like 78,000 of it's just Westfield Rocks the Fourth. You got a few things that are in business meals and department apparel. I do apologize, I misspoke earlier. This department does buy the tchotchkes type things to give away at events. But I mean, essentially, if you cut that, you're cutting an event. And I suppose that's the desire, then.
I guess as I personally went through this, I looked at these and they all kind of seem to be round numbers, like Lantern Days, 25,000. Cuisine Connect Culture, 25,000. Fall Festival, 25,000. Grand Junction Winter Function, 25,000. Seems like some rounded off numbers, placeholders for expectations. I personally think that we should, if we spend over in that department, they can come to us with an appropriation but I'd like to see that $62,000 increase reduced to a $30,000 increase, which would be a 10% increase over this year's budget. So this year, again, they budgeted 300,000. 10% increase would be 330,000. And we know that year-to-date, they've only spent 205,000. So I recommend we could save ourselves $32,000 in the budget there. Counselors, thoughts?
I agree.
We seem to be in agreement. Okay. Just a question on item 350, and I know that you're trying to handle this, Jeremy. I don't know if you're up on this. Under subscriptions and dues for Westfield Welcome, they've got a $2,400 placeholder for potential new volunteer management. Do we know what that is? $2,400 seems to be it's a placeholder, is that?
It's a software program to help facilitate the management of volunteers.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay,
software.
gotcha. All right, okay. Counselors, you good with that?
Yep.
Okay. Moving on to the next item, economic development. Just noted under salary here. Did I find it? There was a longevity bonus of $300. I just think that's like a misprint. I don't think longevity is. there's
Yeah,
any
it's
longevity
carried over
bonuses,
from
so-
a number of years ago. Several years ago, we decided to do away with longevity for civilian staff, but retain those dollars in the individual budgets for discretionary stipends. So not a pay raise necessarily. If somebody does something extremely well, we get a project that comes in $1 million under budget, it gives the directors the ability to give a little bump along the way.
All right, so are you saying above that, line above that is a discretionary stipend of $225? Are you saying add the 300 to that 225 and have a discretionary then of 525? Or are you saying eliminate the 300 because we did away with that?
So those
So
two
the-
should be combined.
Okay, so it should just be combined to the 525? Yes. Okay, got you.
Do you want me to make that official change or
Yeah, if you
deal
could
with
make
it
that
next
in
year?
the budget, that'd be good. Uniformity then throughout the budget. It's not in the budget that I have, but I know we had a discussion at the last council meeting, and we asked that, because we can only subtract from the budget, we can't add to the budget. So we asked that the administration go back and consider adding money to the budget for additional travel, training, attending seminars for Kai Chuck. And Jeremy, you did come back with a recommendation to us of $44,300. Are you intended in including that in the budget then?
Yeah, if that's the direction of council, that's the list of things Kai came up with that would add value. I haven't added them because I didn't get any feedback on that. But if you would like them added, we can add that.
Counselors, do you feel like this would add value and we should make these additions to the budget?
Yes.
I think it's, Scott, unanimous, right? Okay, I
Yep.
assume it's unanimous.
Yes, sorry.
Great.
Couldn't get to the mic button.
No problem. Okay, please, Jeremy, add that 44,300 to the economic development budget, please.
Will do.
Moving on then to informatics, item 331, consulting budget. We've got a budgeted amount in 2022 of $187,000. And we've spent 93,650 year-to-date. So my question is the 187,000 still a good number for the budget, or should that be massaged?
Christopher, are you still on?
Yes, I am. I'm sorry, I missed the question though.
Want me to repeat the question, Chris?
Yes, please.
Okay, item 331, consulting budget, $187,000 for 2022. Looks like you're carrying the same amount over into 2023. Year-to-date, we spent $93,650 through 9 months. Do you feel the 187,000 ask is still a good number, or can it be reduced?
It is a good number. The reason being is that we have to upgrade our CRM environment, and the initial quotes I got back for that were extremely high. And so I'm trying to. The reason I have so many funds this year is I'm hoping to make basically a payment to that project this year and cover the rest next year. And we also are not going to get. I know it's only budgeted for. It's only budgeted $20,000 for GIS consulting, but without the new employee we're getting, we'll be relying on our consulting line to get help for Leanne when she needs it.
Okay. Counselor, you good with that answer? Okay, I guess we're good with that. Thank you, Chris. We got to the clerk. We've already talked about the legal consulting line and what the issues are there. The fact that we've asked the clerk's office to reduce their budget from 48,000 to 24,000, 4,000 per month retainer for 6 months, with the understanding that obviously if they need to spend more, that is within their purview under state statute, and enough said there. Moving into the mayor's budget. My first question is under salary for the mayor. Jeremy, we're showing a salary of $119,435. It's my understanding that his salary in this year should be $123,723. Can you confirm that?
I cannot, but I do know that the ordinance dictates it, so if that's correct, it must have been an oversight in the calculation from last year.
Okay. All right, we'll assume that you'll make that correction then.
Yeah, I guess along that line is the intention of council to also apply the 4% increase in cost of living to the elected officials as a part of that ordinance?
At this point, I mean, last year we did that as a separate ordinance at the end of the year.
It is always a separate
And
ordinance.
it would be, continue to be this year as a separate ordinance.
Yes.
We'll take that under consideration in December.
Okay, so do you want me to leave the budgets, including those? So the clerk's budget has the cost of living in there. The mayor's budget has the cost of living in there. Do you want us to change that to 4% to align with everything else, and then ultimately you make your decision later? Or?
Councilors, what are your thoughts? Just keep it consistent.
I personally, again, I voted against it last year. I'll vote against it again this year.
Same.
So having that in there is not necessary, and I would say don't have it in there.
Feel the same? You mean just leave it the same?
No. He said it's already reflected. What's already loaded reflects the 4% increase. Is that correct, Jeremy?
It is and it isn't because it.
Yeah, the numbers are off because the
off.
base number is.
Right, I understand that. So again, this is simply me speaking for Scott Fry, not for the council. Sticking to the fact that I voted against the elected official increase last year, I will be voting the same way this year, and I want it brought to a vote for the councel.
Yeah, I think it's required to be a separate ordinance. Yeah.
Scott, you want to weigh in?
I voted no I voted no as well last year. I'll vote no again this year, but we do have, council's not here and we're not taking a vote today, so I would think we want to leave it as we're giving it, and then we just don't spend it if we say no versus going back and doing administrative appropriation if it does pass. I just think it's simpler if we adjust it for now as if it happens, and then if it doesn't, then we don't have to deal with it administratively. That's just my 2 cents.
Wow, okay, all right. I think, Jeremy, what we'll do on the elected officials is we will wait and handle that as we did in previous years as an ordinance at the end of the year.
So leave the money in the budget like Scott was referring to? Okay, we're excluding it, and then we'll do an additional appropriation
If
if it passes.
yes.
Okay, so, well, I'm not making the adjustment to the clerk's budget. They will have to account for
So
that.
that would be the mayor, the clerk, city council,
Correct.
right?
You can't adjust any of those after the first year, is
Right.
that, because you said an adjustment, once it's, whatever's on the salary ordinance, that's what it is.
Right, and then you'd
You
have to
can't
do an
adjust it.
additional appropriation to the '23 budget to cover the salary?
No, not for elected officials. You cannot adjust it after it's been,
I know you can't adjust the actual salary, I'm talking about the budget itself. So if we cut the increase out, and so you're flat for next year, then they approve a 4% increase, then your budget line in theory would be short because of that 4%. So you would have to additionally appropriate to the budget in order to cover your 4%
right,
increase.
so it's best to leave it in until you decide what you want to do.
That's what Scott was alluding to. If it's
Yeah.
left in there, we don't have to do anything regardless of what you do. If we,
That's fine. That's
Leave
fine.
it?
Let's leave it in.
all right,
Okay, perfect. I understand. Okay, moving on to the city council. I think we've made those adjustments, but I will highlight them again. That is under the legal consulting line 330. We're going to reduce that 37 to 25,000. Under the promotion line, we intend to reduce that amount from 30,000 to 17,000, okay? And under the services line, we're going to reduce that amount from 96,000 to $10,000. Okay?
so the only one that I think is not changed yet, and I'm happy to change it, is the 330 line, still reflecting 37,000. You want that changed to 25,
To
correct?
25, yes.
Got it. All right. It's in my notes already, so.
Okay, perfect. Oh, I had a couple other questions on the mayor's budget. If we can go back for a second to the mayor. Line item 347, mayor's promotional budget of 16,000. He spent 8,200 year-to-date, half of that year-to-date. Question is, does he need the 16,000? And as we've already discussed, the admin promotion budget was 32,000. Now, we've reduced that to 15. So with respect to this 16,000 here, is it still need to be 16, or can we reduce that at all?
Yeah, I would assume it needs to be 16.
Okay, we'll leave it at 16. I would like to make one note that I'd like you to get with the mayor on prior to Monday to get his input. I've noticed that he's got nothing budgeted for either the mayor's disability council or for the preservation commission, both of which are under administration and his direction. So I would suspect that there should be some money in the budget for those items.
From a cost perspective, thank you for bringing that up because we did not account for those two things. The cost right now of the disability council is being borne by staff, so it's built into the staff salary mostly, and then volunteer base. So I don't know if there's an amount that will be needed. There's no paid staff, I guess, other than they already paid
So-
city folks, so.
So Jeremy, I can speak on that.
Please do.
Joanne and I have talked about that. Any money that we need for an event that we're doing, we're just asking for donations in the community, and we plan to continue to do that into 2023.
And then the other one was the Historical Commission?
The Preservation
Preservation
Commission.
Commission.
And I know the Preservation Commission, you know, in Carmel, I think they budget like around 10,000 in Carmel. And that's to get a professional person in. And I know that there were some preliminary discussions and an offer, I think, to do it for Westfield for like under 5. But again, I would, since that's under the mayor's purview, I just think that he needs to, obviously that commission, I don't think has been appointed yet, but to get the appointment done and find out what the cost is going to be for next year. I can't.
Is there a placeholder that you would like to put in? You said 5?
I don't know whatever you recommend as a placeholder.
Okay. Very good.
Okay. Moving on to communications, item 347. We've got a current budget of $22,000. We've only used 4,800 year to date. Is 22,000 a proper number for 23? Chris Profit.
Mr. Prophet's going to come and address it.
Okay, so I'm sorry, can you, what are we looking at right now?
Item 347 under communications.
Okay, and the category you're looking at is under promotions? Oh, okay,
Yeah.
thanks. Yeah, so under promotions, we just spent, I've been judicious about what we're doing so far, but we just purchased, we made a purchase that hasn't been invoiced yet, and that was for around $3,000. It was for a lot of items that we give out at events. We give out to individuals, groups. So, yeah, those items, we anticipate that we'll be doing more of that, and promotions is also under specific events that we take part in. So, I mean, I think that the figure is correct. I think the figure is accurate. I just, as I said, I've been very careful because I'm fairly new into this, into what we've been spending.
Okay, Chris, thank you.
Thank you.
And I appreciate your efforts. I know
Thank
you're
you.
new.
I
know
appreciate
you're
that.
doing a great job. Thank you. All right. The next item I've got is customer, and counselors, if there's anything I'm missing, please speak up, okay? The next item, though, would be under customer service, item 334, which is the travel and training budget for $10,000. Okay, so we used $295 year to date, and we've got $10,000 budget again for next year. What, seems unreasonable to me.
Certain that Rochelle can speak for it, but I can assure you it's because she has been at half staff basically the entire year. So being able to take lunch is a challenge for them. Going to a seminar is impossible. So fortunately, they have a new person coming on. Once they get that person on and trained, they'll fill that other vacancy, and then hopefully they can get back to being able to do some of those educational type things.
Well, I'm going to recommend that we reduce that budget by 5,000, unless there's, Rochelle, I mean. Let's see, here we go.
Hi, Rochelle Freed, Guest Services. You're absolutely right. We haven't used a lot because of what Jeremy said. We've had a significant amount of turnover in staffing. I do have some interest from some of my staff to partake in some training activities. I've promoted in the last year to a management level, and she's very interested in that. We've also have some continuing education that I would like to go back to what we did before COVID. We absolutely used the full 10,000 before that time. So I do plan to go back to that mindset, but yeah, this year we most definitely could not.
I'm okay with that.
Okay, I think we're okay with that. I would just ask that you be mindful. I think a lot of the training that's being done now is still being done through Zoom training, online training, and which is a lot cheaper than some of the old travel expenses. So, but we'll leave 10,000 in the budget for this year. But, and with the idea of next year when we come back around, we'll have a much better feel for it then.
Thank you.
Appreciate your efforts. Thank you. Okay. Moving on then to HR. Again, travel and training, item 334, $9,400 budgeted. We've used less than $2,000 year to date. We've budgeted for next year, they're asking for $10,675. Can Brady speak to that?
Brady's on vacation, so I'm not sure if she's still on.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm still on. Yeah, for the training in the past, we had went to National SHRM. We've now made that local. There's no, we don't feel like there's any better effort to go across the country versus staying local. So we have minimized that. Some of that includes, with the expectation that we were going to get a third person. And then that's all I can really say about that. We typically use it for impact meetings, SHRM conference, educational materials, general training, FMLA, things like that. And I will say we've tried to be very cautious due to the HR budget with the salary increase for this year for the director position. We've been extra cautious to hopefully try to minimize that additional expense.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I've got one other question on line 347, promotions. We had budgeted $1,900 for this year. We've spent $324 year to date, but I see you're budgeting $9,750 for next year. Can you explain that one to me?
Yeah, so once again, we've tried to be very conservative with trying to have the overall budget be low. So we have tried to really, really watch in the promotions line due to that. But moving forward, we were going to add on some different functions for HR, including we need some onboarding promotional items. We're running very low on those. That's for new hires when they come in. We also are taking over the all occasion cards and memory tokens. In the past, that came out of admin's budget, but we are the ones that purchase, if somebody passes away, we get that gift. That way we can really kind of narrow down the data with that and keep it, because we purchase it off of HR's P card. And so we can keep a better track of that if it comes out of HR's budget versus being out of admin's. So those were the two big increases for that line specifically.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Brady. Appreciate your efforts too. And I understand now that that's coming out of admin and moving into yours, so that makes sense. The next item is, and now we're getting to a little bit of the infrastructure items. Public Works 474, Tomlinson Road widening. I see we've got $500,000 budgeted for that in this coming year, Jeremy. Do you feel is that adequate to do that?
I'll let John speak to this.
Yes.
Yes.
We believe it's adequate.
All right. And when do you think we're going to get to that? I know it was delayed, I think, by Duke moving telephone poles or something.
Yeah, we have an engineering firm working on it currently. We'll provide preliminary plans to Duke, so that was really their trigger to get a relocation plan in place. They don't like to move poles just on me saying, hey, we're going to do this project. They need to see plans in place. So we're providing those preliminary plans. They'll get a relocation plan in place, and then we are looking to bid that next year.
Okay, cool. As long as you're up here, I'm going to jump ahead just a couple of things here. The funds put aside for State Road 32, $9,367,730. Do you know how much of that, okay, does that amount include dollars that have already been spent on that?
No,
Okay.
no, that
So
is
as
money
far
that will
as-
be going out in 2023.
Okay, that's money will be out in 2023. Do you, when we started this, initially we were at this 7,500,000 number. And this number of 9.3 million, that's a number that came basically out April 1st of this year. Okay. And now we're looking at a letting of October of next year. So do you think that the number, the 9.3 from April 1st of this year will be the same number in October of next year?
Yeah, so that is why we built in a 10% contingency into that number in April when we presented it to the council. I'm hopeful that 10% contingency, as we dial in the final design, can incorporate any inflationary costs that may arise between now and then.
Okay, all right. In connection with that, as we look toward next year, the council is going to be presented with some streetscape money in the streetscape in order to do the sidewalks and the lighting and the benches and everything that's going to go along with that State Road 32. I suspect, based upon the numbers we've seen so far, that that's going to be very close to the $5 million number. Do we have that $5 million accounted for anywhere within this budget?
We do not.
Okay.
Sure.
Yeah.
So it was an assumption, which probably was a bad idea. So the $6 million in revenue from RDC to the city is accounted for from a revenue expense and will go into the infrastructure improvement fund. We did not budget any expenses out of there. My assumption was that when council chooses how they want to pay for and what they want to pay for, that those dollars would be available to cover that. But we did not account for it anywhere in any expense line for the extra $5 million.
So the way the budget is, it looks like we've got discretionary money as of the budget currently of like $5 million at the end of the year. Is that where we're at? That we have
Yes,
additional funds?
the circuit breaker information isn't in that $5.5 million, but yeah, we should be in the $4.5 to $5 million range of, well, even more than that now that we're cutting some of these other things, but $5 million is a comfortable number of cash.
So just to be open and honest with everyone, wouldn't it be better to go ahead and put that $5 million into the budget for next year? And then if we don't use it, we don't use it. But to have it already identified as a line item, that's where it's going?
I maybe poorly assumed also that that would be part of the action that you all take about what you choose to do on the streetscape. So we're opening all these other things up for additional appropriation. That's a simple additional appropriation once we have dollars.
I would agree with Jeremy on that. I'd rather see it outside and
We can go and bid it, get a real contract amount, and then do an additional appropriation for that.
Okay, we'll handle it outside, but we do have the money within the budget to handle it.
We do not have expenses allocated in the budget to handle it.
Okay, but we have an additional $5 million in the budget that
You will have $6 million of additional revenue coming to you from the RDC. That would make that available. If you choose to reserve that for some other reason, then you would allocate general fund cash out of cash reserves to do it via an additional appropriation at the time.
So we will have that $6 million, plus there's going to be roughly a $5 million surplus.
Right.
In theory.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, okay. Councilors, do you have any other questions with respect to any of the infrastructure or any other issues? Okay. Jeremy, do you have any questions at this point?
I don't think so. I think I got notes of everything you want to change. We'll get those changes made. And yeah, we'll be back here Monday doing it again.
Cool. Hey, first of all, I'd like to thank everybody for staying on point today. We got done with this 10 minutes early, which I thought we'd go a half hour over. So we did a good job today. And again, I definitely appreciate all the efforts that went into putting this budget together. And hopefully we'll things will work out well next year. Thank you all for attending.
Thank you.